like Lily to answer the question of, what does it take, Lily, for you to get to yes? What makes you say yes to the person?
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. The thing that gets us to a yes, the most important thing is the team. And the thing on the team is I need to understand why you. Why are you uniquely qualified or well-positioned or more passionate than anybody else to go after this and make it a reality? Because it's never been easier to start a company than it is right now in some ways. And so I have to get to conviction that this is the team that's going to be the one who can make it a reality. So for me, it's very, very people and team driven. And so what I'm looking for is the why you in your story.
And is there a particular attribute? Like if somebody came to you and said, I think I've got the only perspective on this. Is that a unique insight that you're looking for, or is it a particular experience they've had? What is it that says, okay, this person over the other person?
We typically break it down into a couple of attributes. And it's interesting. I would say if you had asked me that a couple of years ago, I'd say, what was it in your experience or your very specific domain expertise? So have you been building in this industry for a very long time and that's earned you a unique insight? I think that's still somewhat true in certain industries. But nowadays, I actually think there's some raw attributes that you can have that actually help sort of distinguish those who excel versus those who don't. One that we look for is aptitude, which is pace of learning. I actually think now in today's environment, that's one of the most important attributes that we look for, which is how quickly are you learning and how quickly are you applying the things that you're learning to your venture and to your progress. The other one is attitude, which is sort of, do you have this deep grit and sort of determination. One of my partners the other day used to rip a hole out of the sky. And it's just like such a powerful visual of like, that's the attitude you have of like, I need to go solve this problem. I can't sleep until I do. The other one is ability. So what is it in your background that shows evidence that you'll be able to go after this and do it successfully? So whether you've worked in this industry or you've done a gazillion interviews in this space or whatever it might be, but what in your background shows that you have this entrepreneurial spirit and can execute? One of the other ones is authenticity. So are you self-aware? Do you know yourself? Do you know what you're good at? Do you know what you're weak at? And what do you need to be surrounded by? And so how well do you know yourself? And then the last one is what we call attractor. So can you attract great people around you? And actually the storytelling piece of this is super powerful, which is, can you attract a co-founder or that early hire or that early customer or that early advisor? So do you have the ability to tell the story to get people excited? So those are the things we look for.
So thank you, Lily. We as a team sat down for many years, discussed what are these 5 A's, but they've evolved and they continuously change. And people, for example, bring up different things. But one thing that has never changed, and I'm going to quote this now, is when we meet somebody who is literally willing to rip a hole in the sky. And why I love something like that as a phrase is it's visual, it's visceral, it makes you think differently. It makes you feel like, wow, what is this person going to do to make a dent in the universe, was the other classic phrase. Those expressions are what are so important. So, for example, when Maruna, you go out to pitch investors and tell your story, don't be nicely guarded about what it is you're thinking about doing. Listen to what they are looking for. Not every investor is going to look for that, but if you were pitching Lily, you now know it. And you can go figure out how you address these things, which obviously I know I've worked with you before. You have a lot of these attributes, which is great. But you can give her what she's looking for to feel convinced that she should work with you, that you can get her to a yes. Does that make sense? That's what storytelling is all about. It's not about, if you notice, Lily didn't mention anything about the company or what you do, or she even made the point about experiences becoming less important because there's many different ways to gain experience today. But if you're the kind of person that's willing to go change the world, you can do what you need to do to move an investor to yes. So I've already given you the story arc. And you, I'm sure, have all heard this, but the arc of a story is basically how it starts at the beginning, and it takes you on this journey all the way to the place where, hopefully, as we achieve what we are looking for, people say yes to whatever it is you're offering, or whatever it is you're asking, whether you're trying to get students to learn, or whether you're trying to get investors to invest. There's a yes in every story. And let me make sure you know this. If you don't have a yes, why are you telling the story? I mean, sure, maybe you're in the entertainment business, but not here at the iLab or at HBS. We're in the business of trying to help you get your venture off the ground. So you better have a yes. So today, we're going to talk a lot about this too. What does that mean? And that's where the second framework comes in. So let me keep going. Now, those of you who have whiteboards, I will say the best thing you can do is start to visualize your whiteboard as this arc. And I particularly put it on a photograph as a background for a reason, which is this is a journey. And we want you to think about your journey, about how are you going to move the audience, not you, remember the audience is the hero, through this journey so that they feel like they can see what matters and what the opportunity is and where there's a real big tension point. And by the way, that's the big one, is how do you build enough tension people want to listen to you? Hopefully I gave you a little bit of a sense of that with my opening. And then obviously you can introduce your resolution. You cannot, by the way, and this is the most important thing I wanted to point out here, you cannot skip the steps. If you go, for example, from building the stage to saying what the answer is and the resolution, you just blew up the number one thing in storytelling, which is there's a road. You don't just leap over things. And if you do, you'll suffer the consequences. You'll lose your audience. You'll lose the moment. You'll lose the ability to move them to yes. So there's a reason why this is called an arc. It's literally an arc. And the reason I put a rainbow up there is because guess what's at the end of a rainbow? A yes! No, not a pot of gold. Much more important. It's a yes. All right, so here we go. Let's get into this workshop now. Next thing I want to do is to understand what the yes is, and that's where the second framework comes in. This is the ABC framework. Why ABC? Because it's that simple. So you haven't forgotten the first framework, I hope. What is it? Okay, good. We're doing well. We're still in the 2-minute zone. Took a minute on that one. Let's see whether you can remember ABC within 1 minute. So ABC is very simple. It says, I want to design backwards from the outcome I want. Not forwards, backwards. If I don't know what the yes is I want, why am I telling the story? Why am I taking somebody's time if I'm not clear what I'm asking for? So start with what the action is you want them to take today when they hear the story. Let me be clear about what mine is for you. I want you to take this ABC framework and start to apply it immediately that you start work after this framework, after this session. And of course, we'll be practicing it here too. Why do I want you to do that? Well, I want you to believe that that is the way in which you and your venture are going to be more successful. But you, when you're telling this, have got to figure out what does your audience have to believe before they will take action. For example, if they think you're an incredibly risky venture, I can tell you that's the number one reason that startups don't get traction. It's not because your product's not great. It's because you're probably going to displace somebody else's product and workflow and all the people's training that goes behind it if you're in B2B. Or if you're in B2C, you're competing for a finite amount of budget that somebody has in a family to spend on anything. So you can't just expect them to believe in you, to act on buying your product unless they believe this is really going to change their life or change their business or change their world or change their education or change their medical outcome, as in the case of what Oxyverse is doing. So we have so many reasons why this is important, but it doesn't even get going unless they care. Like if nobody cares about education, or if somebody doesn't care about health, or if somebody isn't interested in learning, why are you telling them a story? So this is super important. This is why we have to spend time right up front thinking about, well, who's the audience and what do they care about? So you design backwards from what you want to do, but you've got to build it up in these 3 stages. A, B, C. What action do you want? How are you going to get them to believe in you? And why do they care? Now, I'm just going to joke here for a second because I told you I wasn't a VC today, so I can joke at VCs. We are great at telling you, no, your pitch is easy. You just have to say, why you, why this, and why now? Sounds great, right? Who's that for? Why this, why you, and why now? But it's great for a VC. They want the cut it short answer. But do you think a customer is really going to focus on why you, why this, why now? No. They're interested in what are you going to do for them? What do they care about? So let me pause there for a second. What do customers care about? Anybody? David, what do your customers care about?
ROI.
Great.
Makes their life easier. Saves time.
Excellent. So customers have all these things that David just said. They want to save time. I'm going in reverse order. They want an ROI.
Makes life easier.
Make life easier. Yeah, everybody wants an easier life. Nobody wants more complexity. Might be simpler, etc. So where does why you, why this, why now talk about any of those things? Well, it could do. If you tell the right story, it could tell all of those things. But what they care about is exactly what you just said, David. There's one I'll definitely make sure we get to today. If you're a business and you take on any new product, service, or expense, or, for example, time-consuming change, you better have an advantage out of it. Otherwise, why are you doing it? If it slows you down and it doesn't accelerate you past your competitors or get you moving in a direction where you have some advantage, why would you do it? So my A word for you on this one is one word. Customers want advantage. I started the whole workshop series we now call Startup Secrets with one tagline: unfair competitive advantage. That is what Startup Secrets is all about for you. We are trying to give you unfair competitive advantage. That's meaning you as the founders. But so you can transfer that to the customers and give them that feeling. You do that, you start talking to customers about what would make an unfair competitive advantage for you, they'll listen. Because that's what they care about. Next step is, how do you get them to believe in it? So they'll take action. But if you don't get this right, no chance. So you design backwards from the outcome, but you build up from C to B to A. All right. What does ABC stand for?
Act, believe, care.
Thank you, Logan. I can always count on you.
Taking notes.
All right. Did it take more than 30 seconds to learn? No. These are the only two frameworks, believe it or not, you actually need to put your whole story arc together. Would each of you who've got a whiteboard just pause for a moment and get C, B, and A, or you can do A, B, and C, whichever is easier to you, down the left-hand side of your board. So you're ready to go, because we're going to start putting some actions on here. For each of your ventures, I want you to put an A up. Like, what is your ask? So Logan, for example, just to help get the process going, because I know you're very good. What does CareerSpan want as an ask? What are you looking for from your story?